Welcome back my channel. Indonesia's current geopolitical and economic landscape is complex, marked by both challenges and opportunities. We join BRICS, new president of United States, North Korea, Natuna Island. Let's sort out. Are you ready? Let's dive in.
So we're going to be doing a deep dive today, and we're going to be looking at something that's been on everyone's mind lately. Rising geopolitical tensions around the world and how they're playing out right here in Southeast Asia.
Right.
We've got a whole stack of reports and articles here.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating to me is how they connect these seemingly distant conflicts to our everyday lives, you know, from the stuff we see on the supermarket shelves to the stability of the entire region.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how all of these global events, you know, whether we're talking about the war in Ukraine or those ever-present tensions in the Middle East, you know, they create these ripple effects that ultimately end up impacting Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing. It affects trade,
Okay.
energy, even food security.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Sure.
One of the reports I was reading was talking about these Houthi rebel attacks on merchant ships in the Red Sea. Now, that might sound pretty far removed from Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
But how does that actually hit home for someone living here?
Well, you have to think about the Malacca Strait.
Okay.
It's one of the most important shipping routes in the world, right?
Right through the heart of Southeast Asia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And any disruption in global shipping, like these increased risks we're seeing in the Red Sea, it impacts the flow of goods through these vital arteries.
So it's not just about, like, ships getting delayed.
No, it's about this domino effect.
Okay.
Delays lead to higher shipping costs,
Right.
which businesses then have to pass on to consumers.
Of course.
So suddenly that bag of rice you buy at the supermarket is more expensive.
Right.
Or that new phone you've been saving up for.
Yeah.
It's out of reach.
It's like a chain reaction.
Yeah.
And everyone along the line feels the pinch. And then it's not just about trade either, right? There was another article that was talking about how these conflicts are also driving up global energy prices.
Right.
You know, Brent crude oil hit $90 a barrel this year.
Yeah.
That's got to have a major impact on Southeast Asian economies.
Absolutely. Countries like Thailand and the Philippines, for instance,
Yeah.
they're really reliant on energy imports.
Okay.
And when those oil prices surge, it affects everything.
Yeah.
From transportation costs to the price of electricity.
Right.
It can really destabilize an economy.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are already struggling.
You know, reading through these reports, one thing that really struck me was the impact on food security.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't realize how reliant Southeast Asia is on imported wheat, especially from Ukraine.
Yeah, and the numbers are quite significant. I
Yeah.
mean, for example, Ukrainian cereals account for 16.1% of Indonesia's wheat imports.
Wow.
And 8.4% of Thailand's.
That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
And when the war disrupted those exports, we saw a noticeable spike in the price of flour and bread in these countries.
Okay.
In Indonesia, for example, the price of wheat flour went up about 15% last year.
15%?
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is a big jump.
It makes you realize how interconnected we all are.
Right.
So we've got these trade disruptions, soaring energy prices, concerns about food security. It's a lot for any region to handle.
It is.
And that brings us to, I think, a pretty crucial question.
Yeah.
With all this tension in the world, can ASEAN really maintain stability in Southeast Asia?
Well, ASEAN's role is more crucial now than ever.
Okay.
They have this history of playing a mediating role, you know, encouraging dialogue and cooperation.
Right.
Look at the South China Sea disputes, for example.
Yeah.
A potential flashpoint
Right.
could easily escalate.
Definitely.
ASEAN has been pushing for a code of conduct to try and manage those disputes,
Okay.
trying to prevent them from boiling over.
Right. And they've also created platforms like the ASEAN Regional Forum and the East Asia Summit, bringing major powers like the U.S. and China to the table.
Exactly, but it's not an easy task.
Yeah.
ASEAN's consensus-based approach, it can be slow.
Right.
And it can be difficult for them to present a united front sometimes.
Yeah.
We saw this play out recently during the Myanmar crisis,
Right.
where different opinions among member states made it really difficult to come up with a cohesive response.
So it's a bit of a tightrope walk for ASEAN.
It is.
They've got this history of diplomacy, a real desire to maintain stability,
Right.
but they also face these internal divisions
Yeah.
and the pressure of these external forces.
Absolutely.
And speaking of pressure, let's zoom in on Indonesia for a second.
Okay.
How are these global tensions and ASEAN's role impacting a key player like Indonesia?
Well, Indonesia is in a fascinating position.
Yeah.
On the one hand, their economic outlook seems really positive.
Okay.
Projected GDP growth of 5% in 2024,
Uh-huh.
or 5.1% in 2025.
Okay. But on the other hand,
the global landscape is creating some serious headwinds for them.
okay.
Sanctions,
Right.
supply chain disruptions,
Yeah.
the volatility of commodity prices. These are all real threats to Indonesia's economic stability.
I imagine that must be quite a challenge for
Absolutely.
policymakers in Jakarta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the sources we have really highlight Indonesia's strategic response to this.
Okay.
They're diversifying trade partners,
Okay.
trying to reduce their reliance on any single country.
Makes sense.
They're really pushing for the development of domestic industries,
Right.
particularly in areas like downstream processing and the digital economy,
Okay.
to try to become more self-reliant.
Yep.
And they're aggressively seeking foreign investment.
Oh.
They've set an ambitious target of IDR 1,650 trillion for 2024.
IDR 1,650 trillion.
Yeah,
That's a lot of zeros.
it is.
What does that tell us about Indonesia's ambitions on the world stage?
It tells us that they're playing a long game. They're not just reacting to these global tensions. They're looking to leverage this situation to strengthen their own position.
Okay. And speaking of strategic moves,
Yeah.
one that really caught my eye was Indonesia joining BRICS this year.
Right.
What's the thinking behind that? Especially considering the existing dynamics with China.
That's a really astute observation.
Yeah.
Joining BRICS is a very calculated move.
Okay.
It gives Indonesia access to new markets and development funds,
Right.
which is crucial for their economic goals,
Yeah.
but it also signals this desire for greater autonomy on the world stage.
Interesting.
They're hedging their bets,
Yeah.
not aligning themselves solely with the West or with China.
It's like they're saying, we're playing our own game now.
Exactly.
And I'm very curious to see how that game unfolds.
Me too.
But you know what's really fascinating about all of this to me?
Yeah.
Is how these global tensions are impacting not just the economy,
Right.
but the social fabric of Southeast Asia. It's like these events are shaking up the very foundations of society.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And one area where we see this playing out very clearly is in the religious landscape.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, one of the articles delves into how Saudi Arabia's historical funding of Wahhabism in Indonesia has created tension with the more moderate Islamic communities.
Okay.
It's led to a lot of debate
Yeah.
about religious identity and the role of Islam in Indonesian society.
So global power dynamics playing out in the mosques and classrooms.
Exactly.
That's a powerful example
It is.
of how far-reaching these tensions can be.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, how are other religious groups in Southeast Asia responding to this changing global landscape?
That's a great question, and one that deserves further exploration.
Yeah.
While much of the focus tends to fall on Muslim communities,
Right.
we can't overlook the experiences of other groups,
Of course.
Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and others. How are these global events shaping their perspectives and their interactions?
Right.
It's a crucial aspect of understanding the broader social impact of these tensions.
It seems like every layer we peel back
Yeah.
reveals even more complexity.
Exactly, and that complexity
Yeah.
is what makes this region so fascinating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Trade disruptions, energy security, food prices, Asians balancing act, Indonesia's strategic moves,
Right.
and even this religious dimension.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I think it paints a really vivid picture of a region grappling with forces far beyond its control.
And yet it's a region that's shown remarkable resilience
Yeah.
and adaptability.
That's what gives me hope.
Me too. And as we continue this deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll explore how Southeast Asian countries are not just weathering the storm, but finding ways to turn these challenges into opportunities.
All right, I'm ready for the next layer.
Okay.
What else do we have in this stack of insights?
Well, let's see. one of the most interesting things that we're seeing kind of emerge from these challenges is it's kind of interesting new opportunities for regional cooperation.
Oh.
ASEAN, despite all its limitations, it's increasingly being seen as this really vital platform for dialogue and collaboration, especially in a world that seems to be fracturing into these competing blocks.
Yeah, that makes sense. When the going gets tough, you turn to your neighbors.
Exactly.
It's like that old saying, united we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly. And this increased cooperation isn't limited to just security matters. It's happening in the economic sphere as well. Take, for example, their Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP.
RCEP.
Yeah.
It's been in the news a lot lately.
It has.
But is it really beneficial for all Southeast Asian countries?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's a debate that's happening within ASEAN itself. There are definitely concerns about making sure that the benefits of RCEP are distributed fairly and that smaller economies aren't overwhelmed by their larger neighbors.
Right. Some critics are saying that it mainly benefits the larger economies like China and could potentially leave smaller nations at a disadvantage.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a valid concern, but on the other hand, the potential for growth is undeniable. By strengthening internal trade networks and reducing reliance on these volatile global markets. RCEP could create much more resilient economies within the region.
So it's a balancing act.
It is.
It's like navigating those potential pitfalls while also trying to capitalize on the opportunities.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like that tightrope that ASEAN is walking on the security front as well.
Exactly. And it's not just about regional alliances. These global tensions are also driving this fascinating trend. The rise of Asia as a global hub. For tech innovation and trade.
That's something I've been noticing too.
Yeah.
It seems like every week there's news about another groundbreaking tech startup emerging from Southeast Asia. Or a major global tech company setting up shop in the region. What's fueling this surge?
Well, several factors are kind of converging here. First, Southeast Asia has this young and digitally savvy population. Think about how quickly e-commerce and mobile payments have taken off in this region.
It's incredible.
It's remarkable. And that digital readiness creates this fertile ground for tech companies to flourish.
It's almost like skipping a generation of technology. Going straight from cash to mobile wallets, bypassing that whole credit card phase that dominated in other parts of the world.
That leapfrogging is creating some really exciting opportunities. But there's another factor at play here. That's the U.S.-China rivalry. Both countries are vying for dominance in areas like artificial intelligence, 5G, and Southeast Asia has become a key battleground for this technological arms race.
So it's not just about who can build the best gadgets or develop the most sophisticated algorithms. It's about who can win over the hearts and minds and markets of Southeast Asia's tech-savvy population.
Exactly. And for Southeast Asian countries, this competition presents both challenges and opportunities. They need to be careful not to get caught in the crossfire. But they can also leverage this rivalry to attract investment, foster innovation, and develop their own technological capabilities.
It's like this high-stakes poker game. And they're all trying to play their cards right to come out on top.
That's a perfect analogy. It requires strategic thinking, calculated risks, and a keen understanding of the players involved.
So we're seeing this regional cooperation, technological advancements, and even some unexpected benefits emerging from this seemingly chaotic global landscape. It's starting to feel like Southeast Asia might not just survive these tensions, but could actually emerge stronger on the other side.
That's a real possibility.
But,
we can't forget about the human cost of these conflicts.
Right.
While we're here discussing geopolitics and economics, there are millions of people around the world who are being displaced. Lives are being lost.
Of course.
Entire communities are being torn apart.
That's a sobering reminder.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in these abstract discussions of power dynamics and economic trends. But we need to remember that real people are bearing the brunt of these tensions.
And it's so important to approach these issues with both a clear head and a compassionate heart. Understanding the complexities is essential, but so is recognizing that human cost and working towards solutions that prioritize peace and security for all.
Absolutely. Speaking of peace and security, we talked earlier about how these global conflicts are impacting religious dynamics in Southeast Asia.
Right.
Specifically the influence of Saudi Arabia and this potential rise of China. But how are other religious groups in the region navigating these changing geopolitical currents?
That's a really excellent point.
Yeah.
While a lot of the focus has been on Muslim communities, it's really important to remember that Southeast Asia is a tapestry of faiths.
Of course.
Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, so many others. Each group has their own unique perspective on these global events and how they might impact their communities.
For instance, how are Christian communities in the Philippines, Vietnam, or Timor-Leste responding to the growing influence of China, a country with a very different religious and cultural landscape?
That's a question worth exploring further.
Yeah.
Are they seeing it as a threat,
an
opportunity, or maybe a combination of both? And how are these perspectives shaping interfaith dialogue and relations within these countries? It's a fascinating area of study.
It is.
Particularly as these global power shifts continue to unfold.
It seems like every question we answer just opens up a dozen more.
It does.
But that's what makes it so intriguing, right?
Exactly.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, revealing more complexity and nuance with each layer.
It really underscores the need for continuous learning, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions. Because in a world as interconnected and rapidly changing as ours, the only constant is change itself.
And speaking of change, let's bring it back down to the individual level for a second. Let's say you're a young entrepreneur in Ho Chi Minh City, or a student in Manila, or a rice farmer in rural Thailand. How are these global tensions shaping your daily life and your outlook on the future?
This is where the rubber meets the road. All of these geopolitical and economic shifts, they have very tangible effects on people's livelihoods, opportunities, even their sense of security.
So, for example, that young entrepreneur in Ho Chi Minh City might be really excited about the potential of the digital economy, but they might also be worried about the economic fallout from a potential trade war between the U.S. and China.
Absolutely. And that student in Manila might be struggling with rising tuition costs due to inflation. While that rice farmer in Thailand might be facing unpredictable weather patterns caused by climate change, which affects their crops and their income.
It's a complex web of challenges.
It is.
And it can feel really overwhelming at times. But amidst all of this, I also sense this spirit of resilience and resourcefulness among the people of Southeast Asia.
That's what makes this region so remarkable. Throughout history, they faced so much colonialism or
natural disasters.
Natural disasters, economic crises, and yet they always find a way to adapt, to innovate, to rebuild. It's a testament to their strength and their spirit.
It's really inspiring to see how people are finding these creative solutions to these challenges, whether it's through entrepreneurship, community organizing, or simply supporting one another.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that even in the face of all this global uncertainty, we have the power to create positive change at the local level.
And those local initiatives, those acts of resilience and solidarity, they can ultimately contribute to a more stable and prosperous future for the entire region. It's about finding that balance, acknowledging the challenges, but also recognizing the opportunities, and empowering individuals to take ownership of their own destinies.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, the opportunities, the human impact, the potential for both cooperation and conflict. As we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to the bigger picture for a second. What does all of this mean for the future of Southeast Asia?
Well, if there's one thing we can say for certain, it's that the future is uncertain. The world is in a state of flux. And Southeast Asia, at the crossroads of global trade, politics and culture
Mm.
is bound to be affected by these shifts.
It's like trying to predict the weather a year in advance.
Yeah.
There's just too many variables at play.
Right.
But can we at least identify some key trends
Yeah.
or potential scenarios that might play out?
Absolutely. Several of the reports that we've looked at point to the U.S.-China rivalry.
The U.S.-China thing again.
Yeah.
It seems like everything comes back to that these days.
It's hard to overstate its significance.
Yeah.
You know, this rivalry is playing out on so many fronts,
Right.
trade, technology, security, diplomacy,
Yeah.
and it's putting Southeast Asian countries
Right.
in a really delicate position.
It's like they're walking a tightrope,
Yeah.
trying to maintain good relations with both superpowers while also safeguarding their own interests
Right.
and avoiding getting pulled too far in one direction or the other.
Exactly. And how they navigate this balancing act will
Wow.
have a profound impact
Right.
on the region's stability, prosperity, even its identity.
So as we look ahead,
Yeah.
what are the key questions we should be asking ourselves?
Well, here are a few that I think are really important. First, will ASEAN be able to maintain its unity and its centrality
Right.
in the face of all these growing external pressures,
Okay.
particularly from the U.S. and China? Can they forge a common path when different members have different, economic and political ties to these superpowers?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
Well,
Can they truly stay neutral when everyone wants them on their side?
yeah,
It's like trying to be friends with two people who absolutely hate each other.
exactly. And second, how will Southeast Asian countries manage the economic fallout from all these global disruptions?
Okay.
We talked about supply chains,
Well-
rising inflation.
Yeah.
Can they adapt? Can
Yeah.
they diversify?
Mm.
Can they find new sources of growth to cushion the blow?
Because let's face it, it's one thing to talk about GDP growth projections,
Right.
but it's another thing to actually see those benefits trickle down to the everyday lives of people in the region.
Absolutely. And third, this one's really intriguing to me.
Okay.
How will these global tensions impact religious and cultural dynamics within Southeast Asia?
Okay.
Will we see more tolerance and understanding?
Yeah.
Or will these tensions exacerbate existing divisions?
That's a crucial point, especially given the region's incredible diversity of faiths and ethnicities.
It is.
It's a melting pot, and sometimes those ingredients don't always mix so well,
Right.
especially when you add external pressures into the mix.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And finally, perhaps the most important question of all.
Okay.
How will the people of Southeast Asia themselves shape their own future in this changing world?
Right.
We've talked a lot about external forces, but ultimately it's the people who will determine the fate of this region.
That's a really powerful thought. It's not just about governments and international organizations.
Yeah.
It's about the collective will and actions of individuals,
Exactly.
their choices, their innovations, their resilience. Those are the factors that will truly shape Southeast Asia's destiny.
And that brings me to another point that's often overlooked.
Okay.
When we talk about Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
it's really important to remember that it's not a monolithic entity.
Right.
Each country has its own unique history. Culture, political system, economic priorities.
We can't just lump everyone together.
Exactly what works for Singapore might not work for Laos.
Right.
And this internal diversity within Southeast Asia
Yeah.
is both a strength and a challenge.
Okay.
It allows for a range of perspectives and approaches to global issues, but it also means that reaching consensus
Right.
and coordinating action can be difficult.
So how does this internal diversity play out in the context of these rising global tensions?
Well, think about the South China Sea disputes, for example.
Okay.
Some countries like Vietnam and the Philippines are much more assertive in pushing back against China's claims,
Right.
while others, like Cambodia,
Yeah.
are more conciliatory,
Okay.
perhaps due to their close economic ties with China.
It's almost as if each country is playing its own game of geopolitical chess.
Yeah.
Trying to maximize its own advantage while also being mindful of the bigger picture.
In a sense, yes. And this can create friction within ASEAN,
Right.
making it harder for the bloc to present a united front.
Of course.
But it also allows for a more nuanced and pragmatic approach,
Okay.
with different countries taking on different roles and leveraging their individual strengths.
Look like this complex dance with each partner moving to their own rhythm,
Yeah.
but somehow managing to stay in sync. And maybe that's part of the secret to Southeast Asia's enduring appeal.
Yeah.
This ability to embrace complexity
Right.
and find a balance amidst these seemingly contradictory forces.
That's beautifully put. And it's this adaptability, this ability to navigate between different poles. That's allowed Southeast Asia to thrive for centuries.
So, amidst all this uncertainty and complexity,
Yeah.
what can individuals in Southeast Asia do to not just survive, right, but to actually thrive in these challenging times?
That's the question we all grapple with, isn't it?
Yeah.
And honestly, there's no single magic answer. But based on what we've discussed today, I think one of the most important things is to stay informed.
Right.
Understand the forces at play. Be aware of the potential risks and opportunities, both at the global and local levels.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
Exactly.
The more you know, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions.
Right.
Whether it's about your career, your business, your investments, or even just your daily life.
Absolutely. And alongside knowledge, I'd add adaptability.
Okay.
Being able to pivot, to adjust to changing circumstances.
Right.
Is absolutely crucial in a world that's constantly in flux.
Yeah.
Think of it like navigating a ship through choppy waters.
Okay.
You need to constantly adjust your course, taking into account the winds, the currents, the potential hazards.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change.
It is.
And in Southeast Asia, that's truer than ever.
Precisely. And it's not just about individual adaptability either.
Okay.
You know, collaboration and community support are going to be essential as well.
Right.
In times of uncertainty, we need to rely on one another to share knowledge resources and support.
Yeah.
Whether it's through local communities, professional networks, or online platforms, there's strength in numbers.
It's like that old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
And in navigating the complexities of a world, grappling with all these rising geopolitical tensions, I think we need to go both fast and far.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
We need that speed of individual initiative and innovation, combined with the strength and resilience of collective action.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing Southeast Asia in this turbulent world. It's complex, it's unpredictable, but it's also incredibly dynamic and full of potential.
I agree. And for you listening, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to look at the world with a fresh perspective. Because understanding these global forces is the first step towards shaping a more informed and empowered future.
Absolutely.
For yourself, for your community, and for Southeast Asia as a whole.
So let's go out there and make our mark on the world.
Yes.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of knowledge.